but we're losing all the pollinators, butterflies, native bees. They're all declining. It's probably a huge conglomeration of a lot of things that's leading to that, but we really don't know.
There has been a lot of interest in honeybees, especially lately. It's really hit the media big as far as declines that are being seen in the numbers, how important they are to agriculture and everything. So they serve a very important agricultural role for us. Then there's also the native bees that aren't getting as much publicity and as much research, because they're much harder to research as well, because our native bees are all solitary bees, or mostly solitary bees. So they're a lot harder to study than, say, a honeybee hive where you've got 40,000 bees all together, and you can move in and put it exactly where you want to do it. Can't do that as well with the native bees, but there's some of the research that's coming out is also saying that the native bees are also declining as well. So, and they actually do a lot of help with the pollination of some of the crops as well, especially on smaller farms. So both the honeybees and the native bees are extremely important just in the whole ecological system.
Hopefully we figure it out and we can figure out why the bees are declining. Part of it could be genetics. The genetics of bees is a convoluted mess compared to most animals. Their genetics is very complicated.
Bee Nursery and Consulting is part of our farm that we've got here. And what we do with Bee Nursery and Consulting is we grow plants that are good for honeybees, native pollinators, and also wildlife conservation. And then in addition to just growing and selling the plants, most of which are native plants, we also will go out to people's farms or homes and consult with them and help them figure out what's the best things to plant in their area to meet their goals on their land, or just walk around the property with them and help them learn what are the trees that are growing on their farm, what are the plants that are already there and flowering, and kind of help them get to know some of the biology and ecology of their land, and then how they might want to, other things they might want to do to help meet their goals as far as pollinators or wildlife or that sort of stuff. We have honeybees in two sets of hives, two different types of hives. The long hive that we have is called a top bar hive. And that one is one that's becoming more popular, but it's not one that you traditionally see a lot of. And one of the ways the top bar hive is good for working and stuff, they both got their pros and cons and different things that they're better at than the other one. Top bar hives are really nice though, because you can pull out one bar at a time and look at it. So one bar of honey or a brood or nectar is not very heavy. And it's very easy to just pull out one, look at it, put it down. Pull out another one, look at it, put it down. And you're opening up the hive just a little piece at a time. So there's pros there to the just the way you work it and stuff like that, and not having to lift a lot of weight at once. You're not going to get a lot of honey production out of those. Not like the traditional Langstroth hives, the big tall ones that you can see. But one of the cons with those is that you have to lift the whole box at once and put it down. And those can get heavy, depending on how big they are, how full they are of honey. Honey weighs a lot, actually. So they're harder to work for a lot of people, especially if you don't have that upper body strength to lift them. When we're going through the hive, some of the things that we're looking at is just the general health of the hive. We're looking for signs of those viruses. We're looking for the queen, or signs of the queen. So are there eggs? Are there larvae of different ages in there? How much nectar do they have? How much pollen do they have? How much honey do they have? Just a whole bunch of different factors that help us tell, is this hive doing really well? Or is it having problems? Do we need to try and do something else with it? And then be able to make those adjustments and changes as we go from there. We try and have the healthiest bees we possibly can. The top bar hive, we're really watching it. We've got two of them right now. And that one, as this came out of the winter, as one hive. That was one hive. The spring, it was doing really, really well, having lots and lots of bees. So we did what's called a split. And we moved half of them over to the second hive. And so now we've got two hives. And that's great because now we have two hives, but you have to watch, especially that first year, and make sure that because you split them now, you've got fewer bees bringing in pollen and nectar and everything. So you've got to make sure that they store enough nectar, they store enough pollen. Are they having issues? This time of year, the bees aren't out foraging as much. A lot of the flowers that they use aren't blooming at this time of year. So stronger hives will go to weaker hives and actually rob the honey out of it and take it back to the stronger hive. And so not only does then the weaker hive lose that honey, but those bees don't want to give up their honey. They've worked long and hard to get it. So you get a lot of fighting going on as well, which can reduce the number of worker bees, forager bees, and in a really bad case can actually have your queen killed. I love it. I love it. I've always loved doing this sort of thing, so it's just an outgrowth of me, so.
Yeah, anything in agriculture is a labor of love. You are not going to get rich in general agriculture. It's just not going to happen, not fast anyway. You can make some money at it, but you are most of the time just doing it because you like to do it. So you have to find something that you can sell at a premium, and you know, honey sells at a premium. It's a high value crop, and that's what everybody thinks of with bees, but there's actually even more if you're selling bees. So if you're a small breeder, you can sell queens, you can sell nucleus hives, and have a decent income off of small acreage if you know what you're doing and if you stick with it. It's definitely not something you're just going to go read a book and say, hey, I'm going to go raise a bunch of bees today, let's go buy some. You're going to have an empty hive pretty soon and wonder what happened. There's a big learning curve to bees. You have to love bugs and you have to love bees. If you're going to be a successful beekeeper, you got to be an entomologist, you got to be a biologist, you got to be an arachnologist, a pathologist, a microbiologist, and a witch doctor. There's a whole lot of just guessing stuff in there. It comes with a learning curve, and what works for me might not work for you. Shannon looks at bees differently than I look at bees as far as going through the hive and how we do it. Everybody's different. I know some really good beekeepers that have hundreds and hundreds of hives. One thing they do on their farm works on that farm. They have the exact same bees, they move them to another farm, those things don't work. So, you know, you're always having to adjust, and that's any agriculture, but with bees you really have to stay on top of it.
I would love to be able to, as we grow our bee populations in our hives and stuff, be able to do more work and have more of the honey production, more of the bee production. We want to actually be able to help new beekeepers get started with new bees and stuff like that. Probably be another year or so before that, but that's one of the goals, long-term goals, is to really be able to start helping make our property better for all the wildlife, for the bees, the pollinators, the songbirds, the deer, the turkey, the bobcat, the foxes, everything we've got here. Really be able to make it better for that, but also help others be able to help improve their property, to, if they want bees, to be able to have honeybees on their property. If they want to have better property for deer or turkey or butterflies or native bees, to be able to help them to do that, to really pass along that conservation mode. So help people learn about it. And then also be able to have a farm that is self-sustaining, because so many agricultural endeavors nowadays, you're working another job to pay for the farming. And I would really like to see it be something that it could eventually pay for itself on as well, which is really hard to do with the areas that we're looking at more with the honeybees, the native pollinators, and the plants, and duck eggs, and ducks. But I mean, it is our goal.